Good. All right. All right. So welcome back, everybody. And well, we just had a great discussion about media. Well, now you're going to experience it because we are about to record an episode of Talk More Talk. And so you're a part of it. And this is really special because normally for Chicago, not that this is a bad thing, but it's usually just Ken and me, which is always an awesome thing. But this year it's even better because we have almost all of the Talk More Talk hosts here. Ken Michaels couldn't make it, but he was here in spirit. But we've got the rest of the gang here. So just quickly, because most of you were here for the previous panel, but just quick introductions here. I'm Kid O'Toole, and the rest of the gang here, you know, Joe Mayo, Ken Womack, and Tom Hignati. So really excited to have everybody here. And so we decided, since the whole gang is here, we're going to do a little game that we've played many times on our show before called Wrack Our Brains, where we are going to ask each other questions, and we invite you guys to ask us questions as well. We also have questions that brought in from viewers and also from Ken Michaels. He sent us questions ahead of time. And these are not trivia. These are questions that are, just opinion. We love, I think you guys know us long enough that we're pretty opinionated, right? We're not shy about sharing our opinions. So why don't we start with our own questions? Let's start with a couple of those. Let's see, Tom, why don't we start with you? What question?
Was I supposed to bring a question?
Yeah,
I
didn't know I was supposed to bring a
Yeah, we always do. Bring our own questions. Well, I mean, we can start with
let's start with
viewer questions.
Yeah,
okay, all right, let's do that. We can do that. Okay, let's see. All right, this is actually not a viewer question, but a question from. I took Joe couldn't make it to this, but I brought Ken and Tom to my local record store the other day, and one of the guys at the record store had this question. What do you think is the best Beatles-related film? Now, your favorite, maybe not best, but now this can be not necessarily, not like Help or Hard Day's Night or something. It can be, Birth of the Beatles, can be Wanna Hold Your Hand, can be Backbeat, anything like that.
Documentary included?
I guess you could include documentary. I guess kind of broad, but nothing like obvious like Hard Day's Night, Help.
Yeah, because mine right off the bat, the first thing I always think of is the complete Beatles. The 80s documentary, and plus we had a film star narrating it, Malcolm McDowell. So that's always the first thing I think of.
I mean, obviously mine is the Peter Frampton Bee Gees film. I mean, it's just great in every way. Obviously, it was splendid in terms of cinematography. The storyline, just magnificent. Really good stuff. It was, how many Academy Awards did it win?
What? 2.
Yeah. Well, but in truth, I do have one, and it's Across the Universe. Do I love the plot? Not necessarily. Some of the performances don't work for me either, but I love the fact that it brought in just millions and millions of new fans, and it warms my heart for that reason.
I like the music from Across the Universe, a lot of that. I would say that Backbeat is probably my favorite. I don't like a lot of the Beatles movies, Birth of the Beatles. I wasn't wild about it. I didn't like Nowhere Boy. But I think what I like is mainly Ian Hart as John Lennon in there. I really believe that could be John. I don't get that in Nowhere Boy, the actor in there, I forget his name. And I think they capture the feel of the Hamburg times. And again, I don't know the actress. I forget who played Ashford. It was very good.
Cheryl Fenn, right? Oh, Shirley, that's right, Shirley.
And,
Twin Peaks.
and ditto for Stuart Sutcliffe. We get, I forget. But I just think it's the closest for me to embody that era. It's hard to do that. We get people who really feel like they're the Beatles and resemble a little bit, sound like them. You get that feeling. But I think this guy does a real good angst, John Lennon.
Yeah, I would say for sort of a, historical, I don't know, I guess you can't exactly say fiction, but I agree, Backbeat. I've always liked that. The soundtrack is killer too. I love the soundtrack. But yeah, for documentary, I've always had love for Complete Beatles. I mean, that was my first one I ever saw, and I think it still holds up for just like a quick overview. I mean, if you don't want to watch the whole anthology, it's a good overview.
Sure, and while we know of so much more now,
Yeah.
it's not one of those documentaries that has been completely eclipsed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Whereas so many others have, where you're just watching things and you're thinking, that's not true. That's not true. It's not like that. And it has footage that was really delightful to see. I remember seeing it for the first time, and a lot of that footage was my first pass at some of that.
Some good talking heads too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Tony Sheridan is in there. Alan Williams,
Marianne Faithfull.
People that you don't see in some of the other ones.
Right.
Even Anthology.
Yeah, exactly. Beanie and others. Yeah, absolutely.
George Martin.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, this one comes from a viewer of ours, Gary Wilbur, and he actually sent a couple of them. And so we'll stay on the movie theme here. So let's see. Other than "Live and Let Die," what, in your opinion, is the best movie song written by a solo Beatle? From "Love in the Open Air" onward.
For me, Cheer Down. Or Lethal Weapon 2.
Yep.
Why can't I have Live and Let Die?
Because it's too obvious.
I got Cheer Down right here.
Yeah.
I love Cheer Down.
Well, was it With a Little Luck that was in "Oh Heavenly Dog"?
No.
Arrow Through Me. That opens the film.
I got
It really elevated the entire film. In fact, it was. With a Little Luck was in a Farrah Fawcett vehicle. It was, yeah.
Was it?
I'm not. Yes, it was, kid.
Well, I believe you.
I feel like
believe you.
this is going to devolve into another one of our epic 10-year fights. I really thought it elevated "Oh Heavenly Dog," "Arrow Through Me," and then it completely just went down from there. But
That is probably the first time I
and
heard
frankly,
that
it's a song that should have had a better life.
Yes, I agree
You know.
with you. I love that song.
And then there's Joe Mayo. Joe?
Cheer Down was the first one I was going to say. I agree. I love that song. But also, Breath Away from Heaven, I like. That was in Shanghai Surprise. But you don't see that movie anywhere really, but that was in there. I like that.
Where does Gary get off taking Live and Let Die away from us?
He's not making it easy for
Well,
us.
that was surgical.
Yeah, I know. Guess I'd have to do No More Lonely Nights because, I remember that song so well when it came out, sold the 45, and that solo from David Gilmour. I mean, that is just so, just like transcendent. It's just so good.
But that solo from Harrison all throughout that song.
Oh, I know, but you took that, so I had to.
So you wanted to go with another round.
I had to go with something else. I know. I love Cheer Down. Okay, next from another faithful viewer of ours, Susan Gagney, who was a great friend of ours. Which recent release do you like better? Band on the Run underdubbed or one hand clapping?
I think that's easy. That's one hand clapping. Definitely one hand clapping.
I love having both of them, but it's no contest. Historically, one hand clapping is just more important. We've needed proper versions. We've of course had them forever, but now to have them in a, with this kind of fidelity is important. So I think it has a lot more value in that way. Plus, it's, historically, it's Paul testing out the band, right? Do I really want to go on the road with these guys? And of course, we know the answer.
One hand clapping for me very easily, for all the reasons already stated. I mean, good rocking on there, like Soily, versions like that, and Junior's Farm, terrific stuff. And I was underwhelmed by underdubbed, to be honest with you. I mean, although I think Let Me Roll It stood out for me.
Yes.
On that, right? But I was a little underwhelmed, but I have it in my collection.
And plus, on top of that, there's still an underdubbed that we could have got besides that. Underdubbed, yes.
Yeah, I have to agree, one hand clapping. I mean, I just, Soily was worth the price of admission for me. I mean, that was incredible. But, I mean, I liked some of the underdubbed. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, but yeah, I'd have to say one hand clapping was more of the revelation there. All right, we've got to get to Ken Michaels, who, as I said, is here in spirit. Okay, this is going to be interesting, I think. No, this in a good way. In a good way. And
I give it a 10.
Yeah, give it a 10. What is the best solo Beatle concert you ever went to, and why?
You want to start, Joe?
In 1992, I won tickets to see the Paul McCartney Up Close show, which I've never won tickets before. I just remember being on the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they were going to take the 25th caller, and I remember listening in because I heard that somebody it was ringing. It wasn't just busy signal, and they were saying on the air, "Let's see, we really got to take the 25th caller? Why don't we just pick one at random, close our eyes and pick one?" I'm sitting there, "Well, please let it be me." And then finally I hear the click of when somebody picks up the phone. Anyway, it was amazing because when I got in there, the tickets that I had, somebody had written in black magic marker on the back that said floor. And I'm thinking, floor seats, that sounds good to me. But it turns out, no, you're going to be selected to go up to the stage. And because I happen to be wearing black leather, black leather coat, at the time.
Long leather coat?
It wasn't that one.
Was it kind of a duster?
It was the usual bomber. They wanted us up closer to the front because it wouldn't detract, the colors wouldn't detract, I think, from the cameras or whatever. But anyway, I can spot myself. I'm shorter than most people there, and I can see myself every time, usually from the back, because that's how you see the stage, and that's how it was recorded. A couple of shots from behind, Paul, where you see it. And let me tell you something, to be 6 feet away was slightly off on an angle. I was way closer to Robbie, I think it was. And to see the fillings in his teeth, when he was singing like that, I saw fillings. I'm like, this is incredible, And after that, I'm spoiled for life.
I do love to see a guy's dental work.
So it doesn't work like this.
It's good stuff.
It was amazing. But even if I got a front row seat now, which at a concert, it's great, but it's still, you got to get the gap and everything. So that's mine.
Yeah, it's interesting that you'd think it would be where you're front row center or whatever, and I've had that experience a few times, but my favorite, I was in the rafters, and it was 1990 when Paul was on that return tour for the first time in forever, and my brother and I, who had grown up sharing this music together, both got to see him for the first time, and it was lovely, listening to Golden Slumbers, etc. It was in Texas Stadium in Dallas. Was that the old Texas Stadium?
That was the old Texas Stadium.
Okay, right before they built the new Texas Stadium.
It was also the first time I saw McCartney.
And I was there with, my brother and I were there we'll admit it right now with Ed Chen. We didn't know it, but and getting those tickets was very difficult. They had an 800 number. You either went and stood in line somewhere. This is so old school, or
Sound Warehouse.
Yeah, at Sound Warehouse. But I was off of college, so that wasn't happening. And I got on the 800 number, complete fail. About 6 minutes, the whole thing was sold out. So the next weekend in the Houston Chronicle, there was an ad that said McCartney tickets. Send a check to this address. What a dumbass thing to do, right? And so I sent the check to that address, and amazingly the tickets came back. And but you know what? Like I said, they were terrible tickets, but it didn't matter. We had just the greatest time. Except Paul should never have done P.S. Love Me Do. But we all know this. This is just a fact. But the 80s into the 90s, it was a weird time.
Thankfully, I didn't have to witness P.S. Love Me Do because I saw Paul, which is my favorite concert, in 1993 at the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan, and get to experience that with my uncle, who was the influence for me to getting into the Beatles and being a big Paul fan, and just being in this super huge football stadium and experiencing with so many other people. Great show. There's Another Day. He does so many other really great songs. And what's that?
Penny Lane.
Penny Lane.
Yeah.
Yes, he did Penny Lane for the first time as well there. Great show, great time.
Penny Lane,
Did he?
up close, yeah.
Yeah, did? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yep, 1990, same tour. That was the second time I saw him. First time was in 1989 on that same tour at former Rosemont Horizon, now Allstate Arena, right near here. But the second time was at Soldier Field, and it was the last stop on the tour. It was incredible. They had, of course, they had the fireworks display during Live and Let Die, but they had another fireworks display at the end.
I think we should maybe continue not to speak about Live and Let Die.
That's right.
Well, I mean, there was a prohibition against it earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd like
I guess
to
I shouldn't
respect
say
that.
it. Exactly. But I have a ticket story too. So they had two numbers set up. I mean, I don't remember if it was Ticketmaster or maybe Ticketron back then. And they had two numbers set up because they knew it was going to be a rush, to get tickets, and the number would get jammed. And I was in high school at the time, and I wouldn't be able to call from school, and so my mother was very nice and agreed to call, and so she called both numbers. And finally got through, got the tickets, so come home, and she's like, great, got them, no problem. The next day, there was an article in the paper and the Tribune saying, well, if you called this number, you're out of luck, because they weren't connected to the computer. And so they just took all the orders and then went back, and of course, all the tickets were sold out, and I was furious, and not just furious, devastated. My mother wrote a nasty letter to the Jam Productions or whoever was the promoter. And a couple months later, and we still don't understand how this happened, my father, maybe it was through the credit card, was called at work and said, we just opened up some more seats on the field, do you want them? And so I ended up getting way better seats than I ever would have gotten, because I think I would have been in the nosebleed seats. And so, go Mom. And it was just an unbelievable show, and it still is, I think, up there, the best show I've ever attended. I mean, because it was the last show on the tour, everybody was just, they all, you could tell, just like, we're going to do the best show, and just incredible.
Tampa was close.
Yep. That was a great show too. It was, but
Tampa 2005. Is that the one with Paul come through the hole in the floor?
No.
No, not saying 2000.
Oh,
It made me think.
yeah, not yet.
That would be a good one.
great show.
But Kid and I went to Tampa.
No, Orlando.
Orlando. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that's your personal business. So, we really need to police this panel better.
All right, so another question from Ken. What is the best archival box set from Paul, and why?
Red Rose Speedway.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the biggest bang for your buck. You're also, not only that, you're also getting the animated show movie as well, and the proposed double LP. So much, which is, I think that was actually a 3 CD to 1 Blu-ray, 1 DVD set. So I'm definitely going to go Red Rose Speedway on that one.
I like how you sort of speak in liner notes, Tom. You know, it's really, it's a language that I've never quite mastered, and you have it down.
I've got it down.
Yeah,
Don't worry
that
about
was
it.
very good. I'd love to argue with you, but I really think that's the one where Paul really gets it right. You know, of all of the releases, particularly in comparison to Lennon Estate, Red Rose Speedway gives you a lot for value for money, but it also gives you a full portrait, right, of those sessions and what they had in mind, and perhaps why it was a good idea that Capitol responded in the fashion they did, etc. I would have to go with that one too. The one that made me the happiest, though, even though
Mouse?
no, you'd think, right? But it was actually Wings Over America. You know, I guess, I don't know, that just, it was taking me back to some childhood moments when I bought that thing, you know, the big 3 record set. And somehow that excited me in a different kind of way. But I think you're right, it's Red Rose Speedway.
I know I'm right.
And they didn't try to sell 50 different kinds of vinyl and, you know,
There you
all of
go.
that sort of thing, which would have bankrupted Joe, and Joe doesn't need that. Joe, you're next.
I'm going to go with Back to the Egg. Oh, wait, no. That didn't come out yet, did it?
Wouldn't you love to have that, though?
Sure would.
You know what? Maybe London Town would be cool, too.
Yeah, let's get the pair of them. Let's finish that off. Wings, at least, if nothing else. But I think what you guys are talking about, everything they did for Red Rose Speedway, that's great. You're right. That's a real top runner. The only thing is, I'm not wild about the album. You know, so I like, you know, like everything else, I like some songs on it, but I have other favorites. I don't know, I might go with Ram. You know, there was a lot of stuff in there. A lot of good music, of course, my favorite album. But I'm also going to put in a little bit for McCartney too, not because the packaging was great. It was one of those early ones.
Yeah, it was this.
Just a book, the book form. But I like that they put all that material out that I only had on bootlegs, all that stuff. You might say, why do you want all you horse riders? Or something like that. But I like stuff like that now and then.
I think you need to answer that question, though. Why did you want that particular?
Yeah, I don't know, just better sound quality. If, I don't know, blue sway. You know? So it just goes to show you, on the one hand, if I may say, I'm not, you know, it's not my favorite Red Rose Speedway, although I like stuff. Often, I'm defending McCartney too on the other hand, and I'll defend Wildlife as well. So there you go.
You also get the worst B-side of all time too. It's Red-Nosed Reindeer Reggae.
Reggae. Oh, yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Reggae,
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Yeah, not great. But Red Rose Speedway was surprisingly good. I mean, because it's not one of my favorite albums of his, but it did present it in a whole new way, and you know, it did make me kind of reconsider the album. I also did like Flowers in the Dirt, though, with all the extra Elvis Costello Paul material, which made me think, wow, why wasn't some of that on the album?
But you gotta take points away because of the whole download controversy on that one.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you've got a point
I
there.
did like Red Rose Speedway, the double. I like it better as a double.
Yes. That's what made me reconsider it. Exactly. That's what really made me reconsider it. Okay, one more from Ken. Let's see here. If you could have picked a single from the Sgt. Pepper album at the time of its release, what song would you have chosen?
I say, although it's not my favorite track, I think When I'm 64 is like the obvious answer, but your mileage may vary. Or as a commercial pop hit.
I would have been Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, as far as a song that, you know, had hit potential. Obviously it had hit potential because it was a radio hit anyway. I suppose that would have been my single, but, you know, I think they got it right in terms of what they did and didn't do?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I would definitely would have picked Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I think it's just got a nice, the whole arrangement. I think it's great. Great chorus. I mean, I think it's very commercial, as psychedelic as it may be. But I think it's gold.
I don't know, with a little help from my friends. I mean, that'd be another pick because, so catchy. Like Joe Cocker certainly had a big hit with it.
So you're saying though,
right, exactly.
It just would have been a U.S. single then, probably.
Yeah.
We know it was banned in
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it'd be just the U.S. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's such a great time. But probably, I think in the end though, it was probably right that they didn't release something. But yeah, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds certainly would have had commercial
Well, they
potential.
did right by picking Strawberry Fields Penny Lane.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that's true. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more questions from here, and then you guys be thinking about questions for us, and it can be solo, and I should have mentioned it can be solo or it can be Beatles. I know we normally do only solo stuff on our show, but since this is Beatle Fest, we are expanding it to Beatles as well. So, and of course, any of us here, we can ask each other questions. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm looking here. So this is from the catchy name T221000.
That's me.
Oh, okay, all right, oh, great. All right, so when the CD was invented in 1983, most albums were over 50 minutes long and some longer than an hour. Do you think this was a positive thing for Paul McCartney albums after 83 or negative? Do you think his albums would be better if he stuck to the 40-minute format of the albums? So, is it better that, is it okay that they're longer, or do you think they should be?
Well, in my opinion, it helped press to play in those 3 songs.
Boo.
Bravo.
So, yes, I think in certain instances it did help, absolutely.
That's such a good question, right? Because it was a paradigm shift in a field that for so long had been putting together 42-minute albums. And suddenly artists who weren't used to that kind of production level were creating more filler than maybe they have before. So I'm loath to find many good records, right, that can stand up to that kind of, time count. So I think it would have helped him to stay inside. I think it would help a lot of artists to stay inside that 42-minute kind of frame. There might be more classics that had emerged instead of folks trying to, create filler for the sake of creating filler. I like that question a lot.
Yeah.
And I would agree. I think the same thing. I think the shorter format is better. And I don't think, when did Paul really have a problem with that other than Driving Rain for long?
Well, off the ground between the pie are 50 minutes long.
No, I don't think, it doesn't feel like it to me.
Was that the CD with that terrible
So do I.
Yeah, that's a great dance.
I'll take it over Motor of Love.
Oh, I would too. Yeah, Motor of Love. Motor that out of here.
What's your reaction to its reaction?
And the Broad Street CD was that long.
That's true. I have a question, if you don't mind me interrupting. What two, during the solo Beatles years, before John passes, what two would you like to have seen tour together?
Any.
Well, is there a particular two that you would like to have seen? Obviously we had George and Ringo concert for Bangladesh, but there's a
1 day.
Yeah, only 1 day. Is there a tour or any combo of two?
John and Paul.
Yeah.
Nothing to add.
Sure, and I would love to see, and this is still true, I'd love to see Ringo and Paul.
Yeah.
You know, I understand I'm sure there are tremendous financial and ego issues involved, but
And just think how
we
much.
still have that potential.
Yeah, just think what the promoters would be asking for that ticket these days.
Oh my God, can you imagine the price? It costs for a ticket.
Wouldn't quite be in Taylor Swift territory.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that would, obviously, John and Paul, I mean, that'd be, I mean,
I have a question too, a Ken Michaels question. So, what is an album that Ken has championed on the show where you just know he's wrong? It's not that great.
Come on.
Was that your question? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And you have to limit it to one.
Oh my
You can
God.
only use
I'm not gonna like it if
Flowers, or maybe flowers in the dirt.
Yeah.
Maybe.
flowers in the dirt.
Okay, let's,
I'm gonna champion that album.
yep.
Or
Okay,
even press the play, probably.
yeah.
Let me take that back. First of all, I forget the obvious.
Yep.
That's his favorite. That's flowers in the dirt.
Flowers in the dirt is his favorite, but he champions press the play.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So, why don't we throw it out? Are there questions that you guys have? Yeah.
Want to go back to the movies question.
Yeah.
What does the panel in general think of Yesterday?
I'll start. I mean, I love the concept. It does not deliver on it. The lead is good for playing the songs, but he has zero chemistry with the woman, so the love story doesn't work for a second. Which means that huge stadium payoff at the end fails, because, you know, for any kind of rom-com, we have to buy into the energy that the romantic leads have, and they don't have any. And because of that, the good ideas are wasted opportunities. We should have been in a puddle of tears when the John Lennon character shows up. It's such a brilliant conceit, but I was just wondering why I'm having to sit through this very non-compelling love story. You know, it's a fun conceit that he's playing Beatles songs that people didn't know. I enjoyed that. But it was such a surface kind of level experience because the main goal of the rom-com, you know, is for us to buy into that romantic relationship.
Well,
It's just nothing.
I think people were in a puddle of tears. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say how emotional they got over that, that scene with John towards the end. But I always kind of judge it on repeat viewings. I mean, the second time I saw it, I had no emotional, like you were saying, I had no emotional contact with the leads, and I think it was a terrible rom-coms are probably my least favorite genre in the in the film industry. But I like you, I had no connection with or I didn't connect with the love story at all either.
Yeah, I go along with that. The rom-com aspect wasn't that strong. The leads weren't really that compelling. They didn't have chemistry. I mean, being a John fan, I didn't know that John scene was coming. I mean, I hadn't heard about it and everything. For me, it was a complete surprise. And I was really choked up with it the first time. I've seen it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, I think.
It was a great idea. It's just, you've got to execute.
Yeah. I mean, I did like the John scene. To me, is a standout. I love that scene. It worked for me with my tear ducts a little bit. But the rest of it, I concur with the rest of it.
I'm thanking you all because you remember me talking about it. Yeah, so when I saw it, I mean, afterwards, people were saying to me, "Oh my God, didn't you cry? Wasn't it beautiful?" And I just thought, I just didn't do anything for me. I mean, and the romance I didn't buy at all. I mean, you're so right, Ken. I mean, there was no chemistry. No chemistry at all.
It's a generic problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was an interesting idea, as you said.
Great idea.
It was a great, but it just, the execution just wasn't there. Now, yes, that John scene, when the door opened, and there he was. I mean, I remember the audience theaters, and we all just kind of went, oh, You know, I mean, it was sort of an automatic
In
reaction.
retrospect, though, there's a problem there because they actually shot all 4 Beatles.
Oh yeah, that's right, I heard that.
Right. So they actually shot all 4 elderly Beatles, which kind of made me sad because if you do the math, there's only one that matters, the one who would not have been murdered.
Yeah,
Right? So even then I thought to myself, well, they don't understand their own text.
Yeah.
Which maybe was true anyway, that they had that lack of understanding the kind of narrative they were working with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you're in a puddle, because, you know, you don't have the Beatles, but...
Right. So, yeah, so I mean, it was an interesting idea, but I just, I didn't feel it was well executed at all, so. Otherwise, we really liked it.
How did Ken Michaels feel about it?
Yeah, I don't know, yeah, I don't remember.
I forgot about, is it Kate McKinnon, is that her name?
McKinnon, yeah.
I thought she was a standout.
Yes,
I thought
that's
she was
true.
from Saturday Night Live. I liked her
Yes,
character.
that's right. I forgot.
Manager.
Forgot that, yeah, I forgot she was.
I just thought of it.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you. That was probably the best performance, although it was like she was in a different movie because she was so acerbic, satirical, and over the top.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah.
like she's in this bubble of a movie that's taking place with this other movie that's not really taking place.
Yeah, exactly. Other questions that you want our obviously strong opinions on, yes?
Okay, keeping with the movie theme, solo Beatles, which one deserves a biopic?
Oh, wow, hard to.
Look, I'm a John fan, but say what you will, you know, if you're pro or con, he's got a fascinating life and was the most complex. And to me, I always sound like I'm putting Paul down. I'm not. I just don't. I think Ringo has an interesting story too. You know, with problems and childhood issues and illness and everything, and alcoholism and all this stuff. Paul, you know, it's a success story, and you know, being great. Paul's story.
Parallel.
But it doesn't seem too much drama.
Well,
in there.
specifically starting in 1970, ending.
Well, yeah, that would be an interesting movie if they did like that, the breakup of the Beatles and how that affected them. Yeah, maybe starting from there, the drug bust. Or some people think he never had a comeback. Some people think he never went and he never had a downside. I disagree. He had a problem, of course.
I think, you know, George won't be cool, maybe if you turn into like a sex comedy or something.
Anybody almost tried to do with the dog like that.
I like this question. Kudos to Ed. I like the question, and it's been a failing, really, of the attempts to capture the Beatles on celluloid, right? I mean, we have to sort of struggle to come up with the stuff that we like when we're talking about documentaries. And again, we probably hold a higher bar because we think about facticity and that sort of thing. As I said before, what has me concerned about the Mendez films, Mendez films, or film, or whatever it's going to end up being. You know, they don't agree on their own history, as we've already said. So I struggle with that. I think maybe the only way to do it, and maybe it doesn't happen in our lifetimes, right? But the way to do it is exactly to pick a piece of time and go from, you know, the breakup to Paul beating back his demons with the alcohol and the stories told, for example, with Linda, etc. Maybe to pick a moment in time rather than to try to do the entire life. And maybe biopics, especially judging by our conversation here yesterday, and also with films like yesterday, they're always flawed by the genre, right? There's a sort of a kind of hero or idol worship that comes from biopics. Again, I go right back to Buddy Holly's story, you know, or so many others where you're always trying to do things in a constrained amount of time. So you create composite characters, you know, you compress things that take place, and you know, these days anybody can Google something like that and say, well, thank you for selling me a bunch of garbage. I looked this up and it didn't happen this way at all, you know. et cetera, et cetera.
The Linda McCartney story where Alan Klein became Grossman.
Yeah, that's right, the Linda McCartney story.
Oh,
Wait, what's
yeah.
God, I remember it was a made-for-TV movie, and
Yes,
of course I was there. There was a John and Yoko movie too, right?
John Yoko love story.
Yeah, I mean, I was there every time.
It
You
features
know?
a very young Mike Myers.
Yeah.
He plays delivery guy. Mr. Lennon.
Yeah, Tony.
I think the story of Paul and Linda getting married and then forming Wings could be a great movie in and of itself.
Oh, sure, yeah, and as I said, yeah, there was that made-for-TV movie a while back, but yeah, like a decent, long while back, like what, like early 90s or something like that? Or was it late 90s? Oh, it was, that's right, because, yeah, it was after her passing, that's right.
It was a CBS Sunday night movie
Yeah.
in 2006 or something.
Yeah, it was in
It's available on Amazon. The whole thing is
Yikes.
is built around the weepy Linda's dying of cancer.
Yeah, I remember watching it back in the day, yeah, it was great.
Getting back to the whole Mendez film idea and the fact that maybe there's 4 different thoughts on that, and there's a Akira Kurosawa film that deals with that same kind of thing. It's a murder. Maybe, but it's told in 4 different storylines, 4 people's opinions or thoughts of what they thought happened, and it's a very interesting concept. And then when you get it's up to you to figure out what the truth is in that. And so I think that could be something
That could be
work.
fun. Yeah, and then what they would do if they played it that way is they would be honoring the fact that they don't agree
Exactly.
on hundreds of issues, some of which are primal.
Right.
On how they got together, how their story developed. I could see really enjoying a film where they show the making of the White Album.
Right.
Right, and it's a
yeah.
biopic that exists from, just got back from Rishikesh to we're shooting, at Twickenham, Hey Jude, right? And what it took to will that thing into existence with all the Apple side shows and the other side shows taking place could be really fascinating. Because at the end of the day, the Beatles aren't Queen, they're not Elton John, they're not any of these other acts. We love them because the music supersedes everything so incredibly, right? That to be able to watch that being made, which we all know we want to see because we just loved it in Get Back. If we were able to watch something like that, I think that would be really compelling.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tony.
Well, the band Queen's my second favorite, but those guys were not friends like the Beatles were friends. Just making a film about their friendship would be cool.
And as great as the music is, they're not the same kind of album band.
Yeah.
You love Queen differently.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you guys a question. Let's go back to a little bit of solo, since we are a solo video cast. What are some of your favorite, what I call MVPs on the solo albums, meaning some of the musicians that have appeared on the solo albums, like some of the musicians that have appeared most frequently on the solo albums, the ones that we've talked about quite a bit on our show. Who are some of your favorites?
Well, I'll tell you. Lately, it's been David Spinoza for me. After this new Mind Games thing. But, David Gilmour, of course.
So let me base it with the name David.
Yeah,
Mason, you love
Dave
his
Mason.
hard work.
Yeah.
Listen to what the man
Listen to what the
says.
man
There you go, Dave Mason. No, I don't know. That's a start. You guys got more time to think.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the collaboration between Paul and Eric Stewart. I think that was, I like what they did together. I don't know if I would necessarily call him an MVP or not, but I think when you think of someone like an MVP, I think of someone like a Keltner, someone like a, Klaus Foreman, I think would be an MVP as well. Billy Preston. Those are what I think would be MVPs.
Those are more frequent.
Ken, do you have any particular musicians that any of the four that that are particular for, or even ones that Beatles worked with, or any in
I like the Double Fantasy Band,
yeah.
Those guys who got together, who practiced and learned the songs before they, for the most part, knew whose songs they were. I had Tony DeViglio getting them all together and putting them through their paces and rehearsing with them. I kind of love that story a lot. Earl Slick, was dynamite in those sessions.
Absolutely.
Why aren't they here?
Yeah, good question.
And I'm wondering if this is true or not, because I've been trying to rack my brain over the fact is there anyone that has worked with the Beatles in all four? I know Nicky Hopkins has worked with the Beatles in all four in their solo careers.
Another great MVP.
Yeah, and I'm curious if he's the only one.
Will they?
What Paul's
What's
song?
that? Same Love, and I think there's one on Flowers and Dirt as well.
Oh, it's Motor of Love.
More
right?
Love.
That's right.
Yep.
Because Preston played on the Beatles in 3 of the 4, and I think
Yeah.
Clapton as well played with the Beatles in 3 of the 4 as well. But then Paul did perform on one of Eric Clapton's albums, but not vice versa.
Absolutely.
Will Lee played with all of them, including live.
Was that?
Who?
Will Lee.
Oh, Will Lee.
Will
Yeah.
Lee.
Oh, Willie. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he only played with Paul live, but he has played with Paul on a couple occasions live.
Willie Nelson, you mean?
Will
Lee.
Will Lee.
the bass player from the Letterman band.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact,
I'd watch that Willie Nelson idea though.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one of
Scout-headed stranger.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, my one of my picks is Willie Weeks. I
Oh, yes.
love his bass. Yeah, I mean Willie Weeks, the stuff he did with George on 33 1/3, and I mean I'm a bass head, so I just love his stuff.
The Doobies.
In the Doobies, yeah.
his bass starts off the album on 33 1/3.
Exactly. I mean, you can't miss it. I just love his work, and there's so many more that we could salute. But oh God, I'm blanking out the slide guitar player.
Pete Drake.
Yes, Peter Drake. Thank you.
Sneaky Pete.
Yep.
Yes.
Sneaky Pete. Yeah, I mean he's.
Didn't George say that he'd rather record an album with Willie Weeks over Paul McCartney?
Yes.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Wow.
I would have Willie Weeks in my book any day, but not Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Ouch. Well, I mean, I love Willie Weeks, but yikes. Okay.
Gordon Edwards, since we just had him on the Mind Games box, amazing bass
Yes.
player.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Any other questions, thoughts that anyone wants to throw out there? Yeah, Tom.
If either George or John had solo tours, what would be your ideal scenario for that? What albums would you want to hear on those tours? What songs?
Who, George?
George or John?
George or John, okay.
Well, I mean, obviously, if he toured, I think he would have had great success with the Cloud9 era, and whatever,
Yes.
Devil's Raid, whatever. I mean, obviously we got the Japan Live, so we know what he probably would have played from that era. But I don't think he would venture out into like Gone Troppo or somewhere in England or anything like that. I think he would just stay to a very specific time, maybe stick with the All Things Must Pass era and a few Beatle tracks and in the Cloud9 era.
Lennon, I would have loved just a funky mid-70s Walls and Bridges tour.
Yes.
It would have been so much fun.
Yes.
And may have changed the trajectory of his whole life, right, if you think about it. But that would have been something really interesting, particularly in that time and place during that era.
Ken, how much of the set list did he have for the 1981/2 tour?
I have never seen a real set list that I think is
Okay.
authentic. I've seen some that people have speculated on the internet. He did say he would open with "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and "She Loves You,"
Yeah.
but beyond that,
Okay. Obviously the double fantasy and Mr. Honey stuff, but
But would he actually have gone through it there?
I think he would have, yeah.
Opening with those two songs.
I have no idea. I think that, I think you get that tour. He had a plan, and the plan was, when you look at it in retrospect, right? You go out on the road in earlier 1981, that photo hits on the cover of Rolling Stone. For all of us, it's a memorial. It makes us just, that left me in a puddle of tears. I remember when that arrived at my house. If you had that and it got its controversial bump, which is what they were hoping with it, the album's #1 and he has a really interesting tour. But I don't think they've even gotten to the practicalities yet of what a set list might look like, although he'd been drawing up some kind of ideas about what the stage would look like.
I mean, the most was what, we're putting out Milk and Honey and then the tour would be immediately after that, that's the way I usually hear that.
I kind of heard it that way too, but he'd gotten pretty far advanced with some stage design. They had hired a consultant.
I don't know if I'm thinking about this. I keep thinking of George when Cloud 9 and the Wilburys were big, like when he was really talk about comeback. He always said, I haven't gone anywhere. But that period, which is the closest we get is Japan, which is a good idea of what he would have done around that period of time, I think. So I'm thinking of riding high with Cloud 9, maybe doing something from there, throwing in some Beatles. But then again, even the Wilburys, I thought maybe they would do a Wilbury store. I thought they'd get everybody scheduled together. That would have been something I would have liked to see. For John, I didn't really know, I don't know how I missed this, that it was that talked about. I remember him saying in an interview, right, he said he'd be happy to go out there, if he was accepted with Yoko, John and Yoko accept us as a couple, then I'd be happy to go out there. But I thought it was just like, what if, or supposition. I didn't really know.
No, they had, and John had even done some drawings himself because he liked what Bowie was up to, of late. They were going to call it the One World, One People Tour. That was a fact. They were going to go out in '81, and like I said, they hired a consultant who did put together some drawings, which I don't know that you can get them commercially, but they're out there.
Is that in your book? The Lennon book that you did?
I don't have the consultant piece, but I do have the, I thought I had the One World, One People and the,
Yeah, you did.
and the She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand bit. Because he had this thing, it was during that last spate of interviews, which is what it probably does lend some credence to what Tom said about would it have really happened. But when he said that, he would take Yoko's hand and sing those songs to her just to get a rise out of the crowd, that sort of thing. Because that was on his mind, right, at that point, why don't people realize I love who I love, et cetera, et cetera.
Still you don't.
But that's what you did in those days, right? Late 70s, early 80s. If you're a dinosaur act, how do you get a #1 song? It's what Paul was doing. He's going to go out on the road. You just don't take weed to Narita Airport. My dad taught me that when I was like 10. That's what you did. If you were a dinosaur act, you got out on the road. If you want to see your record, move beyond a certain point. And that's why we would have seen Paul in '80, '81 too. But history took a different turn, didn't it, Kit?
Right, yes, it
Did, and
Or flight.
Yep. Flight. All right, well, I think that wraps up our time here. Guys, stay here for a sec because I want to get a group picture. But I want to thank all of you for being part of our Fest edition of Talk More Talk, and this will be going up soon. Obviously, not right away after we come back, because we all have to recover from from our trips home. But thank you so much for being a part of this, and we thank you all for your support of our show, of all of our individual shows, and we really couldn't do this without you. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of your fest.